Bishop.
Ready? Well, we're happy to have you with us today. We're excited for those of you who are listening to us. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We're so excited to be able to come to you by Facebook, by podcast, and so many of the social media outlets. And I'm sure that Ms. Dyer is going to make that clear just a little bit later on. We're excited to have this opportunity to share with you. And I have with me this evening Tasha M. Dyer, a retired Army officer, and also we have with us Gerald Rogers and also Dr. Craig Bytewood. And we're so thankful to have them with us. We'll give them an opportunity to say something before we get started.
Well, hello. I am definitely so excited. Definitely excited. I mean, literally, Happy New Year, everyone. I'm excited to be back live here with you all as we gear off and we kick off this new year. We're talking about this is literally the year of transformation, and we've actually extended. We've taken this a step deeper. So as it feeds on your social media, what I need you to do is share this. 1 million families financially educated and impacted. Make sure you share it. But also, go find us on Spotify, Google Podcasts, and coming soon to Apple. So definitely want to make sure that you go find us so we can empower you. So I just want to say Happy New Year. I'm excited to be back here, be around bank, hidden in plain sight.
Yes, Mr. Rogers, how are you today?
Absolutely fantastic. Happy to be back over these airways with our amazing guests. And once again, I want to give a shout out. Happy New Year to everybody. The year of transformation. We are definitely excited about the information that we're going to continue to share. I want to definitely give a shout out to my amazing colleagues, the trade whisperer herself, Ms. Tasha M. Dyer, the finance doctor, Dr. Craig Bythewood, and obviously the general in God's Army, our very own Bishop Harold Rollison. So once again, it is absolutely an honor and privilege to be able to engage and walk this journey out with each and every one of you. But most importantly, our guests, if you're on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, we want to make sure that you like our page, share this information. 1 million families financially educated and impacted. And we're going to put the tools in your hands to be able to excavate the land in which each and every one of you come from so that you now can be responsible for writing your own and creating your own personal financial narrative as you endeavor to create wealth for you and your family.
Thank you. Dr. Bytewood, are you out there somewhere?
Yes, I am Bishop Harold Rollison, and I would like to echo the sentiments of my colleagues and let everyone know just how extremely ecstatic I am to be in the presence of greatness, to be in the presence of servant hearts that have come together collectively to help you transform. So I greet our listening audience, and I am very excited to be a part of this broadcast.
Yes, yes. I'm excited to be with all of you this evening, and I'm excited about our theme. And we want to just take off with our theme today, coming from Romans chapter 12 and verse number 2. Now, before we have Ms. Dyer read that passage, we want to know that Romans is written to both Jews and Gentiles, those historically Jews that have become Christians, and those new Gentiles who had just been introduced into being servants of God, part of the kingdom of God. And we're excited about that. And those first few chapters talk to the Jews and say that you got to understand that God is not your God exclusively, but he's including others. And he's saying to these Gentiles, when we get to the end of Romans, that something has to happen for you to be have the kind of mindset to be a part of the kingdom of God. And so we're excited about the newness of mind and the transformation that has to happen in an individual who was formerly a stranger to God, and now they have been drawn near to be children of God. And so, Ms. Dyer, can you read that passage for us?
Absolutely, Bishop. Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good
Yeah.
and perfect will.
Perfect scripture. Thank you, Miss Dyer. And I'm excited about that because he said that we can't be conformed to those Gentiles who lived in Rome. You can't live like the Romans anymore. There has to be a change in your mindset. And so we have to leave our old mindset, our old way of thinking, our old way of behavior, because all of that is controlled by what we think and how we view God in our lives. And so we're challenged today as we talk about trading, how we think about investing our money, how we think about what we do with the money that we're able to come be a part of who we are, and how we handle that and who we trust with it. It has to be a change of mindset that has to happen with us. And so Paul says that things are going to get better. It has to be a renewing your mind. And as we look at this passage, we're going to notice that there's a requirement, and he gives us in this passage what has to happen in order for our mindsets to change. Miss Dyer.
Yes, Bishop.
What are some of the most important things? And we notice that in this passage, Paul talks about God has put everything in place, and he talks about the necessary teaching and training that's part of changing your mindset. And he said he's gifted some to be teachers. And doing your course in the military, I'm sure you ran across some folks as you tried to train them. They would say during the course of training, I know. And they don't know because they haven't been introduced to this information before. And I know those people who think that they know and they really don't know and they want to pretend to know. As Paul says in this passage, that we ought not think of ourselves more than we ought. And so we got the mindset that we already know and we already have an understanding, then it's very difficult to change that mindset. Often we run into folk, when we talk about in terms of our investing our money, we talk to people who often run into you and they say, I know how to invest, I know what I need to do, and you can't teach them. Have you ever ran into anybody like that?
Absolutely. I mean, that's always the case, but you mentioned the military, so I can actually make a comparison for you to really bring this home and bring it to perspective, because we all come from different walks of life, different backgrounds, different people feeding into us consistently and all the time. So what the military does, because you do have to be transformed, you do have to be shifted. So what they do is they put you with a basic training, officer basic course, whatever the case may be. They're going to strip you for 8 to 9 weeks or 3 months based on whatever course you're going through, where you have no access to the outside world. You get to make a phone call every now and then. And so they're going to drill it into you, how the shift and that change of mindset. And if you don't transform, if you don't conform, then you just get to go home like you're not fit. You say you're not fit for service. So that's just how the military actually are involuntarily transformed. So now when we take this shift, you have to take that same mindset, because here we are talking about people from all different walks of life, talking about people with all different types of background, but we're talking about the same market that's literally available to each and every last one of us. So some have been exposed, some haven't, some understand how to work money, some don't. But yet, now the difference is nobody's going to force you to do it. Nobody's going to involuntarily transform you. You have to voluntarily transform yourself. And so that's why the transformation and the renewing of your mind is so important, because you have to be able to eliminate everything from your past, all of your previous thinking, and be able to launch forward. And so you can actually make that shift that you're looking, and that shift that you ultimately desire.
Mr. Rogers.
Well, absolutely. And I think one of the major points of understanding is, and that's why Paul does want us to be transformed by the renewing. So as Ms. Dyer already alluded, we come from a myriad of backgrounds where some things that were made available to us, it was a part of the programming, and we're all being programmed. It's just a matter of what type of programming are we getting. So when you look at the educational system that we've been inundated here in America, it allows the average person to be a part of a process and a system. And we talk about systemic, systems are designed to give specific outcomes. So when it comes to understanding of money, there were no conversations in many of our households understanding how money actually works. Yes, we were taught to go work for money, but there was never any conversation in our households that actually put us in a position where we could be resourceful based on those ideas and outcomes. So that's the major point, that when we're talking about people who say they don't know, it's simply what we call one of the 4 stages of learning, where it's the unconscious incompetence, when you simply don't know that you know because you haven't been exposed to that level of understanding. So it's very important to make sure that we present this information so that individuals can realize that 2 things, in my opinion: how do you become your own funding source? How do you live out your biblical creed? So we have to get back to that point where we have to unlearn some things, unpack some luggage, because the programming is consistent. Now we have to do a virus scan where make sure that bad information that's been on our hard drive all these years, we download a new program. And remember, when you're being entertained and you're watching the program, there's a reason why they call it program. So what type of programming do you want? Do you want programming that's going to benefit you financially and put you in a position of wealth? Or do you want to be programmed continually to be consumer, where you're always looking for handouts? So there is a choice, and we want to present that choice to our listeners and everyone else that's dialed in and tuned in today.
I'm sure you heard of that, the law of the first teaching.
Yes.
And that sounds like Paul is telling these folks, you can't be conform to this age, but be ye transformed. And so you being conformed to those things that you've been taught from a child up. Get yourself a savings account, get yourself a good insurance policy, those archaic ways of handling your money. And people don't know a lot about money. I bought some eyeglasses today, and I used my Cash App card. And as a result of using my Cash App card, I paid $400 something for the glasses. And I got $15 in Bitcoin as a reward for using my Cash App card. And the young lady I said, see what I got? See what I got from a car? I got Bitcoin. She said, oh my goodness, I heard about Bitcoin, but I don't know that much about it. And so that was a teachable moment for me to talk to her about currency and how currency worked, especially after what happened in Washington. I said, the last time we had something like that happened in Washington, we had 700 different forms of currency in the United States. She said, huh? I said, yes. I said, because insurance companies were acting like banks. The heavy industry companies were acting like bank. The iron companies were acting like bank, and you could write something similar to a check and use it as currency. And I said, now they united the currency when they had to pay for the war, and that's why we got one currency now. She said, I thought it was always one currency, not in America. And so you have the opportunity to teach and to learn. Of course, she want to learn how to be her own bank now after that conversation. But a young folk and a lot of other people just haven't been exposed to information. Once they're exposed to information, they have to make a choice whether they'll go with the new information or whether they're going to go with what haven't really been working for them. Dr. Bytewood.
Yes, sir.
How are you this evening?
I am doing outstanding. Thank you for asking. This subject really, to me, brings out a lot of the reasons why I love this movement. Of the many pieces of value that I think we add, one of the things I love is that we're giving opportunities for individuals to shift the way they think so that they can empower themselves. And part of empowering yourself is not only to have a mechanism where you're in control, but you're also in control of the assessment, of the evaluation. I thought Ms. Dyer's example about the military was excellent, And in that example, the military is making the decision of whether you are acceptable. Well, if you think about the beauty of the levels and layers of this word, be not conformed to this world, be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. And when you do that, you will prove what is good, what is acceptable, and what is the perfect will of God. So that ye, that ye, those two letters are so critical to me, because what that means is when you recognize that you're the one that determines what type of world you're going to have and live in, when you recognize that you're the one that's going to determine that you have the ability to be transformed from how you view, when you realize that, now you recognize that you also are the evaluator. How many times in life have we had that evaluation, that final exam, that annual review, and we get that little anxiety in our stomach? You know why? Not because we're questioning whether or not we did well or not, but we know that somebody else is in charge of the evaluation. Someone else is in charge of the assessment. So this Romans 12:2 is reminding us that by being our own bank, we are the ones that provide the annual review. We're the ones that decide the grading rubric. We're the ones that decide whether or not we are acceptable, because we determine in our relationship with God what is good, what is acceptable, and how we will transform. And that, to me, Bishop, is a beautiful thing.
That is a beautiful thing. I was really thinking when Mr. Dyer mentioned the total isolation that the Army takes you through. I thought about my older brother, who's now deceased. I can remember him writing home and said, "Mama, I'm writing this letter. I'm sitting on the toilet. It's the only place I can write." And he was hiding in the bathroom, so he got to write a letter home. And that scared me to death. I said, "Well, I'm not going that route." But you know, it was the idea that
I'm surprised. See, actually, they'll time you. Like, you got so much time to even do that. And all of y'all got to go at the same time. When I tell you, they strip you, like, you don't have now. You know, today's Army. You know, no, let me stop. But that's how it was. You got 5 minutes. All of y'all got to go. So.
Yeah, he was right, and that really scared me. He turned down a couple of football scholarships because he thought he wanted to be grown real fast, and the Army was a way to get from under the reach of my mother and father, and so that's what he did. But I chose another route. I accepted my scholarship and went on about my business. But I can imagine being in a place where you can't write home, and they had a place at Fort Jackson called Drag Ass Hill, and that was part of your transformation in the middle of the summer. In Columbia, South Carolina, running up this steep mountain of a hill they created to create endurance, and getting up early in the morning and running for miles and miles. We thought wind sprints were rough, Mr. Rogers, but the way he described it, he scared the living daylights out of me. So there was no way I was going to do that. But I like what you said, Dr. Bikewood, when it comes to measuring your goals, you determine what is good. And so that tells me that there are some goals that one has to set for themselves in order for that to measurement to take better, because he said that you will decide what is good and pleasing. And so you get an opportunity to determine whether you met your goals or not. When it comes to financial goals, don't wait until you 65, 70 years old and say, "Wow, I didn't make my financial goals. Now I need to reassess." The time to reassess is in your 30s and 40s, when you really have an opportunity to have time to reach those goals. And so when he says that we have to make preparations for our goals in order to be pleasing. And so I'm sure some of you have had the opportunity to talk with people about their goal setting, economic goals in life. And the question is, how often do you find people who are on track with their goals?
Well, you know what, I love that, because even right now with Women Teach Forex, the women's group, what we're actually doing is exactly that, but it all starts with understanding where you come from. We're talking about budgeting, actually identifying where you are. So most of the time, nobody's on track to where they want to be in their goals, but nobody actually pulls back to understand where they you have to know where you are, where you're going. So identification first, and that's actually what we're doing. And even kind of tie in something that Mr. Rogers said into that question, he mentioned programming. Think about this for just a moment, because a goal right now for most Americans, a goal is $15 an hour. It was something we voted for, whether you voted for it or against it, it's what passed, right? And so $15 an hour. And really, really think about that, because we're programmed to think, okay, that we need to keep, that's 25 cents a minute. Just think about your value and what you're worth. That is literally 25 cents a minute. And so when you break that down, so is that really a goal? Is that something that's you want to set forth, that's your goal, that your value is only worth 25 cents a minute? So we just had a young lady that, just shared with us after I shared that with them, that she made, when she broke down what she traded in just a few hours, we're talking about $1.44. So just kind of put that in perspective, that you want to be able to set your own, you want to be able to create your own value. You want to be able to know what you're doing and where you're going, but you also have to know where you're coming from. Because I know I would have really thought about it in the past and how much you're really making a minute, that's really going to make it shift and kind of change some things, because then you get more committed to obtaining those goals. You get more committed to wanting that shift and that transformation.
Wow, Miss Guy, you put that way, that really makes me feel bad, because about 10 years ago, I was paying my employees $15 an hour. And I need to say, I'm sorry for paying y'all 50 cents. Did you say 50 cents a minute? That make me feel bad, Ms. Dyer. I'm sorry, y'all, if you're listening. But you can't change the past. Mr. Rogers.
I think one of the things too is, we're talking about transforming our mind. We have to also create a new image of what the future entails, and as we extract ourselves from that, because one of the things that our movement is centered around is also impacting individuals and helping them and giving them the ability to put the pen in their own hands and write their own financial narrative. Because so often, everyone is always talking about they don't have time. Because time is an abstract concept, but everyone has time, because it's just a matter of what we find a priority and how we allocate our time. I'm an avid sports fan. I believe I'm completely and totally delivered from that aspect. But I used to think about, before I really understood what financial goals were and making goals specific, I was that guy that spent every Saturday from 12 noon to 12 p.m. or 12 a.m. Eastern on a Saturday, watching every football game. And then on Sundays, I would repeat that behavior. And I realized that none of those activities were getting me closer to my financial goals. And it wasn't until I had a conversation, and quite honestly, it was a very frank conversation. I really appreciate the candor of the individual who told me that it's not the fact that you don't have time. Becoming financial resource is not a priority of yours. And with those things that we find value in, we make the necessary adjustments. So I just want to admonish those who are listening to, once again, we're talking about transforming your mind. You have time. It's just whether or not learning the skill set, putting your family on the other side of money now becomes a priority. Because for those things that are now priorities, we make the effort to move closer to that. So hopefully I'm shocking many of us out of our stupor. This is the year 2021, our transformation, but nothing is going to transform in our personal experience until we really reallocate our thought process and understand that we have to be very definitive when it comes out in pursuit of our financial prowess.
Wow, that's a lot, that we do have the time, and we just have to stop watching New Orleans on Sunday. Who that? I mean, they lost so bad, it just wasn't worth me watching, and so Uh,
Shots fired. Shots fired.
We're gonna leave the Saints alone. We're gonna leave the Saints alone. I think we move forward this weekend. So
yeah, I thought I'd mention Miss Dyer. She's from Louisiana, and so she before she became her own bank, she was an advocate football watcher also on Sunday. But I think she repented of that and she moved forward. And so, because I know she wasn't watching the game last night because she kept texting me during the game with Alabama and who was that? Ohio State. And so I hadn't quite repented yet, and I'm working on that, but this hadn't got there yet. We still growing. Dr. Bytewood.
Yes, I'd like to address what Mr. Rogers said about sports. I am like him in that I don't spend a lot of time watching. In fact, I don't watch NFL games at all. But I do think that we need to recognize that he didn't say don't watch sports. What he said was make your wealth a priority. And there's so many ways in which we can take something that we love to do and we can maximize it with things that we want. I'll give you a perfect example. I have 14 line brothers that I pledged Kappa with, and one of them died being obese. So one of the things that I implemented was every quarter in the football game, we're going to get up and do some exercise. So now you're sitting there for 4 hours or for 3 hours, but there's something productive happening. You know, there are only 11 minutes of actual action in the National Football League game. So there are ways in which you could still do something that you love to do, but be productive. And sometimes when we mix the things that we love with the things that we desire, we put ourselves in a position. So transformation isn't always about not doing something, but it's instead adding something to your experience.
Amen, amen. And if you get involved in something that's productive, and usually when we look for something to make up time, we have to find something that's a little more productive than the average way, or the way that it conforms us to this world. And so we have to find something different so we can accelerate. When you're behind, you have to accelerate. And I think most of us really evaluate where we are economically and what our goals were when we were younger. We discovered that it's time to accelerate the production or the benefit of our income and where we are storing our goods. You know, Jesus was very concerned about that. There was the 3 servants that the master left some money with and told them to invest it while he was gone. One had 1 talent, one had 2 talents, 3 talents, one had 5 talents, and the one with the 1 talent buried his because he thought it was too risky to invest the money. And when Jesus returned, he called him wicked because he said you at least could have put the money in the exchange and invested it that way and have a little faith. So when we look at Romans here, Romans emphasizes the fact that we are trying to do the perfect will of God. We're trying to exercise faith as we make the transformation into doing something different. And that's what I want us to see, that when we talk about trading, we're talking about, for most of us, something different. And the reason I know that, because in the past, we haven't been able to afford to trade because we haven't been able to afford to get on the vehicle that would allow us to trade. And so is trading a vehicle that can accelerate the return on our cash, Ms. Dyer?
absolutely. I mean, absolutely.
Did I throw something on you? Why are you frowning?
I'm like, absolutely. Because I mean, think about it, you know, every time you approach anything that's different, anything that's new, it's a learning curve, period. There's always a learning curve. So you're going to either make a decision. We don't object to it. You know, we know we're going to school. Our children are in school until they graduate. Every year you're presented with something new. So every single year you're learning and you have a learning curve. And then You know, you think about it, you go get a job, they send you to training, you know, they vet you, they do all of these things. There is a learning curve. And so here we are talking about a market. We're talking about $6.6 trillion a day. I mean, just think about that. You know, most people haven't even, we always say million and billion, but nobody ever in normal conversations goes up to trillion. So, and this market has grown. So when you look at the fact that this market is growing, Bitcoin is surged, cryptocurrency, yes, the evolution of currency. So Bitcoin surged. I mean, it was like 300% over the last year. So when you really, really take that into perspective and you really, really look at where we are right now, you have the opportunity to take advantage of this. And do I need $40,000 to buy a Bitcoin? Absolutely not. You can actually take advantage of the movement of this currency. And that's what we teach you how to do. That's what we show you and help you understand, because you want to be wealthy, you got to do what wealthy people do. So yes, it's a learning curve. Absolutely. Absolutely. You have to learn something new. But aren't you worth it? Or do you want to stay at 25 cents?
Mr. Rogers, Ms.
Wow.
Darwin, should you stay at 25 cents?
Absolutely not. When you put it from that perspective, give me my just desserts. Now, I mean, think about it though. When I think about where we are right now, and I think about, and I'm sure Dr. Byth would be able to chime in with this as well. My degree is in business economics. My undergrad degree is in business economics, and my minor is in psychology. So those two things, money and psychology, right? So money is an energy, and when you don't understand it, you become manipulated and abused by it. And I think about me sitting at Florida A&M University, love my university, but upon graduation, I was completely clueless about life. You know, I met the basic requirement, which means, and this is just my perspective, that when you've attained your degree, that simply means that you paid all your money, right? You met the minimum requirements by showing up and passing the test. And then you leave school, in most instances, inundated with debt because no one prepared you how to navigate. And then you immediately so concerned about, because they tell us you got 6 months before you have to start paying back those student loans. So you rush out unprepared and just try to pursue something that would eliminate some of that pain. So this concept, this process is really teaching us the understanding that we've been completely misinformed when it comes to the dynamics. And, you know, I almost got really, really smart. And this is just my perspective, ladies and gentlemen, my listeners, but I was in the process of getting ready to obtain my master's degree in order to make an extra $10,000 annually. But it was going to cost me another $38,000 at that time to make an extra $10,000. So that was going to put me in the debt threshold for another 30 years on the average before you pay off your student loan. So once again, ladies and gentlemen, my perspective is in the transformation and the transforming our mind. Is education important, or is what you're being educated upon brings the most value? So I am 2 billion% teaching people how to tap into this $6.6 trillion a day industry. And now if you add the acceleration of cryptocurrency, we're now in that phase where it's being in the acceptance phase. Just like you mentioned, you purchased something and you got $15 in Bitcoin. There are stores here in Jacksonville that you can go to a coin machine and purchase cryptocurrency. So wake up, world. Wake up, wake up, wake up. No more sleeping in bed. Time to get ahead. That's all I got to say on that.
Mr. Rogers, I didn't know you were a rapper. They taught that at Florida A&M also.
No.
Yeah. Mic check, mic check, mic check. 1, 2, 1, 2.
No. Not encourage him. Absolutely not.
So rap is a form of entertainment. Another form of entertainment is cartoons. And I am the first person to admit that being a person that grew up as an only child, I enjoyed cartoons so much that I changed the name of them to animated series, so it made me sound cooler. So one of my favorite animated series was Transformers, more than meets the eye. And what would happen with a transformer is you would be a normal, regular, slow-moving machine going from place to place. But the moment you decide to make that sound and to transform, guess what? Then you became a powerful vehicle that could move fast throughout the land or throughout the air or throughout the water, depending on what type of transformer you were. So Paul was way before his time with this, because what he's saying is that you can be like the rest of the world and slowly walk from place to place if you want. You can spend an extra $38,000 to make an extra $10,000 if you want. Or you can renew your mind, you can transform, and we can literally propel ourselves to where we need to go.
That's so true, Dr. Bytewood. And Ms. Dyer, can you read verse 3 for us?
Hold on. You gotta let me get it. You know, the walking Bible over there, he probably know it off the top of his head.
Who's that? Mr. Rogers?
Mm-hmm. All right, I got it. I got it. So for by the grace given me, I say to every one of you, do not think of yourself more highly than you ought, but rather think of yourself with sober judgment in accordance with the faith God has distributed to each of you.
Exactly. And so God has given each and every one of us a certain amount of grace. And he points out that grace is the ability to think sensibly. And as God has distributed that measure of faith to each one of us. And Dr. Bytewood just emphasized the fact that it just ought to make sense. It doesn't make sense to pay interest on $30,000 for a $10,000 raise. It doesn't make sense to me. It's not sensible. And so certain things just don't make sense. It doesn't make sense to put your money in a savings account that's only going to pay you 0.5% interest on your money, and they're going to make thousands of dollars off of your money and not give you a dime for using your money. That just doesn't make sense. It's not sensible. It's not something. And so part of the transforming our mind is being able to think clearly and with some sort of understanding. In order to think clearly and have understanding about something you have been exposed to, you got to take the time to be taught so that you can think sensibly. I don't know how we think that we can think sensibly about systems that we haven't been exposed to. And so I was talking to some pastors the other day, and I said, one of the things that we got to do is we got to create some systems for our kids when they finish college, Mr. Rogers, where they can plug into the economy. Like you said, we graduated and we just walk around with a robe, cap and robe on, and not knowing how to plug in to the system, because other folk are saving those outlets for their own children. And so they're not going to create competition for their children. And so we have to create opportunities to plug in. And so this is a system that we're offering where our children can plug in before they spend that $38,000 in exchange for $10,000. I know this is one of your pet peeves, Miss Dyer. You jumping the bed.
Before he responds, I want us to take ownership as well, though. I really do. And we know how systems that, we've been talking about systems, but, when I was the recruiting commander for Jacksonville, I was in every single high school out here. And it really brought some stuff to perspective. I visited every high school because one of our target audience was high school seniors. And most of them, I'm going to college. They don't know why they're going. So before they even get to where the competition is, Before they even get there, they don't know. And then when you look at what the attrition rate is, so we have to do better in our own households from the time a child is young to kind of give them some direction and saying something more than I'm going to college. What are you going for? Because when they get there, they think they've met it. We succeeded. You know, I'm here now. And so it's like you got a sense of accomplishment, and parents have pride because you're in college, but it's like, what am I in school for? For what? You know, and so then they accomplish that and they have no further direction because it's like, now what? What do I do now? And so they'll keep going to classes and get those degrees. But it's like, if you don't have them focused, it's always about, we talked about goal setting. So you set that goal and you backwards plan. So if college is on a destination to where you're going, like you want to be a doctor, lawyer, something of that nature, then guess what? You have to go to college. But don't just go to college because you just going to college. You know, it's a business. And because it's a business, what am I going for? So they're there to make money. So what are you going for? Like he said, what are you being educated upon? And so before we, you know, because that's also a shift in mindset, because we'll be quick to say, well, they've created the system. Our children can't do this. Our children can't do that. But let's take ownership from the direction within our household, because what path are we setting them on? Where are they going?
Wow.
Major has spoken. The major has spoken, Bishop.
Yeah, I heard her. I heard that tone. She had changed up on us. But
but that's what Paul is admonishing us. Be transformed by the renewing of our mind, and we got to take ownership as well. But I do want to add to the fact that, you know, I'm just over here, I'm just like thinking about replaying my life right now, right? Because I was programmed to think that I was going to become a professional player. And they told me that in order for me to get to the NFL, I had to go to college, right? So my initial first semester on campus was, I enrolled, I had my classes, and I went to practice. I went to class for the first week. Then I got introduced to Nintendo Tecmo Bowl, and I played Tecmo Bowl and went to practice because I was only going to be in school for a year, then I was going to the league. So my brain was all discombobulated. Was all discombobulated. And like Ms. Dyer said, you know, I think about the fact that I was fortunate enough to graduate. And we talk about the perspective of education being a business. I'm thinking about the many people who enrolled with me who didn't finish, but they left with student loan debt and they still didn't finish. So that number is just amazing. So I do want to help our listeners understand that, you know, when we know better, we do better. And that's why we are so adamant about making sure that we continually have conversations like we're having right now, and just to reshape the thought process, because we do have to take ownership by unlearning some things, because, you know, we find ourselves, and it pains my heart in this sense, that we have a lot of sports activities, and I love sports. I mean, I think team sports is a great tool, but man, there are so many parents out there hoping that Johnny and Jerry is going to be able to become a professional athlete so that they can take care of the family. And I just understand from a biblical perspective that it should be the other way around. And so that should be our pursuit. So we definitely got to take ownership and reevaluate some of the things that we've been taught as well.
Well, let's pretend that Johnny does make the team and he does get that big check. Most of them they play about 2-3 years, and then in the 5th, 6th year, they're broke. So they don't know how to handle the money that they made. You know, and so still we have to plug in to some system that shows us and teaches us about money.
Right.
Because when you start making that kind of money, there's always somebody waking up every morning. Where's my daddy? Somebody waking up every morning trying to figure out how to get what's in your pocket into their pocket. And so and that's just the truth. When you're making that kind of money, somebody's always trying to figure out how to get what you got. And so if we don't teach as Ms. Dyer said, we don't teach our children how to handle money, then And for most folk who look like us, that's an unknown because we never had that kind of money before. And so you got to plug into some other folk who can teach you about what's really going on. Go
I
ahead.
think Dr. Whitewood, I mean, I know this is you, everything that we're talking about in this, I mean, you probably like the subject matter expert beyond, because you had so many different experiences by being a professor. And then even when we're talking about the big check, you know, can you kind of just share with us your experience when you were the director of finance for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and really what was that like from that perspective? So I think listeners really need to understand how important it is to make sure that we engage in this process at the beginning. Can you share with us some of the things that you experienced when you were with the Buccaneers?
I absolutely can. So just for clarity for our audience members, I was the financial education director for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, which meant my task, my role, my objective was to educate these athletes in a mechanism so that they would know how to utilize their money and be able to manage and understand this complex issue at these young ages. So the initial priority on my end was every single player in this organization needs to hear this. So we're going to do this for 16 weeks. And after meeting with personnel member after personnel member, it became apparent that their priorities were drastically different than mine. So it went from 16 weeks to 2 weeks, and it went from all the players to just the rookies. And one particular year, our second session was on a Monday night. And for the benefit of those of you that may not know the way it works inside of an NFL clubhouse, Tuesday is the day off. We meet on Monday night. So of course they're thinking about what they're going to be doing the next day. Well, interesting, Bishop Robertson brought up New Orleans. There was a time when New Orleans was a pretty bad football team. And so I go to meet with the Buccaneers, and the day before on Sunday night, they lost to the Saints, to the Aints that they called them back then.
That's fire.
I'm speaking truth. So what happened was they were so depressed that they lost to the Aints that they sent them home. So that means I get there for my session and they're not there. So I literally, that particular year, only met with the rookies one time. 16 went to 1. We started this call off talking about priorities. So this is not anti any organization, anti any sport. It's just about recognizing that systematically, the way this world prioritizes things, it's based on what Bishop Robertson just said. What is the best way for us to extract revenues from this particular individual or group? And that is why this empowerment piece is so important. Let's empower each person, each family, each community to learn this on their own so that we can begin to do something different. Thank you for asking that question, Mr. Rogers.
Wow. And so this is why we're trying to reach 1 million families through educate and empower, so that we can have the ability to share and to direct our children while they're teachable, during their teachable moments. You know, the psychiatrists say that between the ages of 20 and 35 are the most teachable moments, because people are experiencing a lot of new firsts in their life. First time they get married, first time they live in their own apartment, first time they buy their own car, first time they get their own credit cards, first time they buy their own insurance. There's a lot of firsts between those ages. First children, it's a lot of firsts. And so experiencing those firsts, we come to a point where we recognize we don't know what we're doing. And so we have to take advantage of these teachable moments in people's lives so we can reach them, and each one can teach one. I know that's one theme we had one year at the church, each one teach one. And so we have to entrust information with other folk, trusting that they're going to share that information with others, because that's what this movement is about. If we're going to have our own economic system, if money is going to travel around our community more than one time, then we have to share with individuals the importance of money management and how to handle your money. There are professional people out there that will charge you dearly for money management. I can remember a few years ago here in Jacksonville, there was a manager who was taken to trial for mismanaging players' money. And so, it's easy to be taken advantage of when you're ignorant. And so we need to make sure that we share that information and position ourselves to get good, positive information with no hidden agendas. Ms. Dyer.
Well, I mean, it's the agenda, honestly, is like you say, teachable moments. And I believe that that's always going to be the case. Like, you have to have a teachable moment in life. And I think, when you really look at it and put it in perspective, so I'll just use my son as an example, because he's 20 and he's trading. And so you have me, who is open and wanting to educate the world, and you have his dad, who, is a really good father, but at the same time, he's calling him all the time, like, go get a job, boy, go get a job. Why you don't have no job? Go get a job, and he's like, I'm good. That's what he tells him, like, I'm good, because he's not open to this information. He's not open. That's just, that's where he is. And so when I look at what my child is able to do, and I look at what he's, the discipline that he has, because one thing he did get from football, that teachable moment, is, and COVID shut that down because he was playing in Minnesota. But one of the things that, he got from that teachable moment, in his life experience with that, is discipline, because he's always been very disciplined, and he was on that same path Mr. Rogers was on. That was his world. That's what he thought he was going to do. So he's taken that skill set and actually transferred it over, the discipline that he has, into this. And so he's open. So he did go, stay with his father. His father was making him work for a while, and he came back home and he realized just how important this skill set is. So sometimes we have to realize, because he was trading, but he wasn't taking it serious. He went and worked and was like, I don't understand how people slave all day. You come home tired. And he was like, Mom, I can't do this. I can't do it. And that moment made him understand just how significant and important it is for him to create his own. And so that's literally what he does. I don't do anything for him anymore. He's created his own, and that's what he does. And so those moments, as long as somebody's been exposed, as long as they've been exposed, we can't expect everyone to transition at that moment. So, our responsibility is to share this information. And so what's going to happen is they'll come back around, because they will have a life moment. They will have a teachable moment that's going to push them toward, to say, wait a minute, I do need to be open. I do need this. I do need to transform. I absolutely must, shift my life and do something different, because I'm worth more than 25 cents a minute.
Wow. Mr. Rogers, you were brought up in that conversation about teachable moments. I guess when we got out of school, we recognized that there was no connection for us. There was no real place for us we could find in the economic world. And that became a teachable moment. I got to find my way. I got to do something to make a difference.
Right. I would tend to piggyback off of Dr. Bythewood, because I'm a transformer fanatic as well. So I'm just grateful and thankful that I had some people that was willing to tell me the hard things about, and it made me better. And sometimes sometimes when people tell us the hard things, it may take a minute, but once again, like Ms. Dyer said, our responsibility is just to expose people to the information. And we do good by doing good. So I'm excited about transformation because many of us who are on this platform, all of us together, we went through that process. So we will be compassionate with others when we expose people of information, and we will empathize, but we're not going to allow anyone to make any excuses for not operating in their greatness. And we're going to hold everybody accountable to producing and operating in excellence. So that's what transformation is about, expanding, increasing, but making sure that the influence that each and every one of us possess, we are willing to share with others so that they can now experience the opportunities that many of us have been less willing to adhere to, but time has now pushed us all into a place. And I think Dr. Bythewood said it so good that the COVID experience taught us about how to resources are being reallocated. I think that was the word that he used. So now that everybody's making that adjustment, we're finding more ways to be efficient. And I think that's what he said. But I know he'll add to, and I'm waiting on him to do that, Coach.
Well, you're absolutely right. This whole world is transforming. And if we think that we don't have to transform with it, we're fooling ourselves. Because if we think America is going to look like it did a few years ago, we're fooling ourselves. We all have to transform with what's happening in our country. As things change, as you well know, what happens in Washington affects the whole world and how the world functions. And so we gotta be ready to change our ways in order to make sure that we are economically efficient in this changing society.
Correct. Let me chime in there, Bishop Robinson. So yes, Mr. Rogers, that is exactly what I said. And I want us to think about something. In order for the lights that power your city to function, there's a very important piece of machinery that is necessary. And then there's a big piece of machinery that is rectangular, and it is called a transformer. And what the transformer does is it takes electrical power and it takes it from one circuit to many circuits. Without that transformer, the electricity doesn't have the ability to be able to reproduce. So in order for each one of us to financially educate and empower 1 million families, we have to be a spiritual transformer, where we take all of this power and we transform it from one circuit to many circuits. And that is what this movement is all about.
Amen. And so we are literally at our time. And so what I want to do is make sure that that's Dr. B is so on point, to where we transform, we have to transform. And we need to be those electrical circuits. And what is that? How do we do that? By empowering yourself. And so you can do that. Get a copy of this book. We've had so many testimonies. Be Your Own Bank, Hidden in Plain Sight, about how this book is actually transforming and helping shift that mindset. And you can pick that up at BeYourOwnBankMovement.com. Also, tonight, what we do is educate. Go to that same website, BeYourOwnBankMovement.com, and message us and find out exactly how you can be your own bank and how you can join us this evening. Because what we do is we make this, I'll be talk with the finance doctor, where we are here to educate the 1 million. We're going to educate the masses. So you just have to ask yourself, what part of that and where do you fit in that 1 million? How many people are you going to help shift? Because the change doesn't start in Washington. The change starts here in your household, one family at a time. And when you empower yourself, you can release those shackles that has always been there. So empower yourself and empower others. So 1 million families need to be transformed. And this is the year of transformation. 2020 gave us our correction, and 2021 is the transformation that's required for you to become your own bank, create your own legacy, and create your own value. So we want to thank each and every last one of you all for joining us today. We're so excited to be back. Yes, we are. And we will definitely see you this evening, and we will see you back in the same time, same spot next week. With that being said, love you all. And this will officially conclude this broadcast.